Welcome to Channel AMEC, your insight to the Australian visa system. Good day everyone, my name is Carl Young, your online YouTube visa consultant. Are you interested about migrate to Australia? Why don't you consider to subscribe to my channel and turn a little bell on the side so once we have all the updates and news, you'll be the first one of getting all the inside. Now today's video I would like to discuss in regards to the resident return visa. Now obviously a lot of people know and a lot of people aim to get a permanent residency. Now permanent residency is not really permanent, right? Well, a lot of people don't know, but when you get a PR, you notice that your PR is only valid for 5 years. So it's not really permanent. However, it does provide you a way to permanently extend it in conditions, but those conditions is not as bad as you thought. So in today's video, we would like to discuss this visa category of the name Resident Return Visa, RRV, under the subclass 155. Now it's a visa category, it's a permanent visa, permanent residency visa for extension of your current PR in a way. So you may get 186, 189, 190, 191, or perhaps 801, 870, or whatever the permanent visa that you actually have. But at the time when it's about to expire, you're required to extend it if you do not seek to become a citizen of Australia. Anyway, let's come in and have a look, and you may want to do your own Google search on resident return visa. So it's under the subclass 155 and 157. What's the difference? It's not much of difference. It's only two digit. The digit is the there's only 157 minus 155 equals 2. I think that's the only differences. But apparently, if you log into EMEA account, it's all under the same category. So I think previously it has been differentiated into different way of applying, but now obviously we're treating everything electronic now, so they are basically the same. So you can see they still do paper. I'm not too sure anyone do paper now, but predominantly people will use online. So what does this visa do? You can travel in and out, and you get another 5 years of permanent residency. So in with a condition. That's right. So PR, a permanent residency visa, is not really permanent. That's the key thing I wanted to educate it and explain to you in this video. So you must be either a permanent resident already, okay, or you were a former permanent resident. For example, you were holding a PR 5 years ago. You already expired for 5 years. How do you get your permanent residency back? There's always obviously the way. Obviously your permanent visa was not cancelled. Well, how can you get your permanent visa cancelled? Generally it's mostly I think will be in character issue. For example, you had commit crime, and in some extreme circumstances you have your permanent visa cancelled. You were a former Australian citizen who lost renounce of Australian citizenship, and Australian citizens are not eligible to apply for an RRV. So if you already have in Australia as a permanent visa holder, you do not need to apply a visa unless you need to leave. What does that mean? That means if your PR due to expire tomorrow and you are now still in Australia, that's fine. You do not require to extend your PR at this point in time. But say 3 months later, I'm planning to travel, obviously, then you need a visa to come back. Then at that point of time, you're required to renew your visa. Anyway, the best practice is we recommend you to actually extend it, renew it at the time of before it expires, so you don't forget. You don't want trouble anyway. Okay, so let's jump into the eligibility, and we will have a look into the condition that you're required to meet for getting your resident return visa granted. So obviously you need to be PR, as we have just talked about. So when RRV application law application is assessed against both subclass 157 and 155 and 157, if a requirement for 155 are not met, then they will check whether you will be under the 157. The maximum travel facility can be granted 157 is 3 months. So anyway, they should have just make the law to combine the two criteria together. So because I'm not too sure how they designed it at the very beginning. Anyway, okay, there's no age limit for sure. Okay, and meeting the resident or substantial time requirement. And now that's the key one. So very easy to understand here is the first thing is within this 5 years as a holder of a PR, whether it's going to be 186, 189, 190, 191, okay, this 5 year you lived in Australia for 2 years. Now that equivalent to 730 days. It does not have to be continuously. It can be in and out, but accrue altogether for that total of 730 days. Then that will mean you'll meet that requirement. Then the facility will actually grant you another 5 years of permanent residency under subclass 155. Okay, now the other one is if you're outside and not being absent of 5 continuous a year or more before date of application, hold a permanent visa, or at last left Australia as a permanent resident. Be able to demonstrate substantial tie. We're going to go into that detail with substantial ties. But there's also another way to demonstrate if you have absence for more than 5 years. We'll come to that later on. And be outside of Australia and was Australian citizen or permanent resident for less than 10 years before you apply. Not absent period will equal 5 years between the date that you left Australia as a permanent resident, and be able to demonstrate you have that substantial tie. So again, you can read here. The key here is this substantial tie to Australia. Substantial tie to Australia. That is the key. So if you cannot demonstrate that you have stayed and lived in Australia for 730 days, the substantial ties to Australia is the key to actually get your permanent residency back. Okay, now the fourth point, being Australian, be able to demonstrate substantial tie in Australia. And again, you can see that phrase again. That benefit to Australia, not being absent for 5 continuous years, most recent permanent residence, and stop being Australian citizen, in which the case you can given maximum 12 months. So generally, if you can demonstrate there is a substantial tie, I mean, going through all this can be really back and forth. A lot of people won't really understand how this will all work. But the easiest way is, now, first thing you ask yourself, whether you have been living and staying in Australia for 730 days in the past 5 years. Then if yes, you get 5 years. If not, then we need to demonstrate your substantial ties to Australia. Then you'll be able to actually get another 12 months. So you can actually come back to Australia within that 12 months. And then hopefully you continue to stay for longer time and you get another 12 months. Okay, so that's the calculating how that work. Okay, so 2 year period is 730 days. 5 year period is counting back from the date of the application, going backwards. Okay, so it doesn't count forward, it counts backwards. Now, what are these substantial ties that you can demonstrate? Now, obviously, you need evidence for support to have those documents at the submission when you submit and lodge your visa application. So your time must be both substantial and of benefit to Australia. That includes you have business ties. So obviously, maybe you're in a multinational firm and you're required to travel all the time. You're expats traveling all the time, but you have business ties in Australia. Now, cultural ties, this is a bit tricky. Generally, how they assess it is whether or not you are a member of certain or specific cultural groups, and you're required to travel a lot. I'm not too sure how that works. I haven't really done one like this. Now, employment ties and business tie is generally connected together, because if it's going to be business, then it's employment, because you can be the boss an owner of the business traveling all around, or you can be a senior manager traveling around the globe. And because of the work in your career, you cannot be in Australia for that long, but your business or your salary and income are paid in Australian dollars. So that's employment ties. Now, last but not least, it's the easiest way to actually have that substantial tie is that you have personal ties that include family ties. For example, your sons and daughter are Australian citizens. Now, that would be very easy because they are your sons and daughters. Then obviously you can get your permanent residency back easily. Okay, so that is the easiest way that you have family ties, rather than going through to argue there is employment, cultural, or business ties, which is valuable. But if you do have personal or family ties, that is the easiest way to go and get your permanent residence extended. Now, people may ask whether or not cousins, grandfathers, all these probably two-tier or family or relative, will that count? Okay, now I think the general practice will be these ties has to be a direct blood relationship. So it's either going to be your parents or your direct sons and daughters. Okay, so that's how that will work. Now, this is a repeat again. I'm not too sure why they have substantial ties again, and they basically repeat these words and not hold an authority to return or return endorsement. I haven't seen this at all. As you can see, this is very backdated stuff back in 1976 to 1986, so you don't see this kind of stuff anymore. Obviously there's a character check, so you need to do your police check certificate. If you have been living in USA for long enough or staying in USA for long enough, you need FBI certificates. Or if you're in UK, same thing, you need to get your character clear. So basically that's it. So what I'm going to summarize here is obviously permanent residency may sound permanent, but the visa itself is not actually permanent. A reason behind the design of this visa is it gives the person a way of freedom to choose. You can forfeit this permanent visa as well, but there's also a condition attached to it where you can actually extend it further, whether gonna be 5 years, another 5 years. If you reach that 730 days within that 5 years, you get another 5 years or PR, or then you need to demonstrate that you have a substantial ties to Australia. That can be business, employment, cultural, or personal family ties. Anyway, should you have more question, query, more than welcome to leave a comment right down below. And I'll see you next video. Goodbye.